What comes to mind when I say the word glaive? Probably something like mid, trash, useless, unworthy, or something along the lines of even if I had a choice between playing Glaives or a Rat King, I would still play Rat King. Alone. Most people sleep on Glaives, but with this setup, I'm basically a one-man army. Of course, if you have friends, that's a little better, because this build will shine the most when you have teammates around you. Now look, I really wanted to make a Hunter build. The reason being is because everyone plays Warlock or Titan all the time with all these insane builds. So I really wanted to make my Hunter stand out too. Most meta Hunter builds these days are so similar and boring. I thought that maybe considering that Trident Vice buff Bungie did a while back and the new Void on the Prowl aspect, this could be a very fun build, and to be honest, I wasn't wrong. You know what the best part about this build is? You can use pretty much any of the 3 remaining Void aspects and still make it work, depending on your playstyle. I'll explain in a bit. There are a lot of moving parts in this, so try to keep up. First of all, let's talk exotics. As I mentioned before, I'm putting Trident Vice on the spot. It has always been in the depths of my vault, but this changes today. Just to remind, Bungie did buff Trident Vice a while ago, and it now lets your glaive do 100% increased damage when surrounded, and also gives it additional 50 reload speed, which you can't really be mad about. It also loads a round for every melee kill you do, up to double the magazine, and with this build you'll be doing a lot of that. There's one more thing that Trident Vice gives you, but I'll tell you all about that a bit later. We are pairing it with Vexcalibur because it has insane synergies with this season's artifact perks, but also because you can give yourself an additional 20% damage buff just by having an overshield, which Vexcalibur does provide you and your teammates very easily just by blocking. I would recommend having either feedback or a movable refit on it. The reason for that is because you absolutely do not need Grave Robber, since Trident Vice gives you the same thing. I went with a movable refit since the amount of energy it gives compared to Vexcalibur without a movable refit is really good, and I'll tell you why that overshield helps you out later on in the video. But again, I really do not recommend using Grave Robber for Vexcalibur. Okay, now let's talk aspects. The one you definitely want is on the Prowl. Bungie added it this season and it is actually quite good. What it does is this: when entering invisibility, it marks a nearby combatant as a priority target, and if you kill it, it will create a weakening cloud of smoke, which makes you and your teammates invisible. The most important part is that it also gives the whole team reload speed, stability, grenade, melee, and class ability regeneration. Basically, this aspect fits into like a support role, I would say. GMs are not out yet this season, but I can bet it will absolutely slap there. Now remember when I said you can play any of the 3 remaining aspects and the build will still work? That is absolutely true. I've been playing all 3 and I can now share my opinion on pairing on the Prowl with each of them. Let's start with Stylish Executioner. It is probably the weakest aspect to pair with on the Prowl. Reason being is because you need a very good way to constantly go invisible. Stylish Executioner does provide that, but with a disadvantage. You need to be running something additionally which will either weaken, suppress, or make enemies volatile. And then you also have to kill those enemies. So you would also probably need to run like a suppressor grenade, maybe throw your melee to weaken enemies, or try something else. To me personally, it's just a bit too much to get simple invisibility. Don't get me wrong though, Stylish Executioner paired with anything else is an absolute blast, but sadly not with on the Prowl, at least in my opinion. Now, Vanishing Step. It is quite good and very simple. You dodge and you make yourself invisible. What's more to add to it? Super simple to use, easy game loop. But think about this, you won't really be using your charged melee with this build anyway, so why not pair it with Trapper's Ambush, which will weaken enemies too? And before you say it, yes, you actually can activate Trapper's Ambush when you have your glaive pulled out. So look at this, if you run this instead, you can use your melee, get invisibility, and instantly get it back when you pair it with Gambler's Dodge. That is literally perfect. Even at times when you don't have your Gambler's Dodge, you can pair it with mods which will give you melee energy back, like Momentum Transfer or Outreach. Okay, so now let's go with aspects, and let's start with the most obvious ones for this build. Echo of Exchange. Melee final blows grant grenade energy. Very simple. You kill enemies with your super duper empowered glaive, you get grenade back. It also does not have a cooldown, so it will constantly proc. Next is Echo of Leeching. Melee final blows start health regeneration for you and nearby allies. Again, super simple, get kills, get health back. Let me mention right now though that you do not really need recovery for this build because you'll be getting your health back from this fragment. It also does not have a cooldown, so go nuts. Next would be Echo of Reprisal. Final blows when surrounded grant super energy. Once again, plain and simple, get kills, get your super back. And by the way, I would recommend using Shadow Shot Deadfall since it has the biggest effect on the surrounding enemies and your team, since they can also target those weakened and blinded enemies. You can use Mobius Quiver too, it really depends on the activity that you do. If you're like in a high stakes situation like a GM, then you definitely want to affect the most enemies for the longest period of time possible. Then you really want to go with Deadfall. But if you're just playing casually, doing the Nether or something else, go for Mobius Quiver, of course. Just have some fun. Next is Echo of Persistence. Void buffs applied to you, invisibility, overshield and devour, have increased duration. This is a must, by the way, since you will be proccing both invisibility and overshield literally all the time. It does take away 10 mobility, but for this strong of an effect, it's 100% worth it. Now this last one I wasn't really sure about, even after playing with this build for quite a bit. I went for Echo of Provision, which says damaging enemies with grenades grants melee energy. So this is very useful if you're going to be running Trapper's Ambush like I am. With the other two remaining aspects, not that much. But you should 100% pair it with either Vortex, Void Wall or Spy Grenades, because they do tick damage. And of course, the obvious choice here would be Vortex. Next contender would be Echo of Instability, which gives volatile rounds to your Void weapons after a kill, which would then proc Stylish Executioner if you decided to run that. You could also run Echo of Obscurity if you're in some difficult content, which gives you invisibility upon finishing a target. And after that, your On the Prowl will activate, which leads to the regular gameplay loop. So this is definitely in the top 3 choices. Now the last one would be Echo of Vigilance, which gives you a 45 health overshield once you defeat a target, when your shields are broken. But the thing is, you can get your overshield from Vexcalibur with a click of a button, so I wouldn't bother. To be fair, I would probably recommend running Echo of Provision, which gives you melee energy, and then pair it with Trapper's Ambush. This way you get the most value, and if you run a Vortex Grenade, you should be getting that melee back very, very fast. Okay, so we've almost covered everything. There's just a few things left. Let's go over the mods you should consider for this build. For your helmet, you definitely want double hands-on, which gives you even more super energy from melee kills on top of Echo of Reprisal. If you have some space left, put in Harmonic Siphon since you'll be running Vexcalibur anyway. For your arms, I put Bolstering Detonation and Momentum Transfer, which pairs perfectly with Echo of Provision. So now your grenades recharge your melee and class ability at the same time, which you then use for Trapper's Ambush if you decide to run that. For your chest piece, simply run whatever mods you need for a certain activity, like Arc or Solar Resistance, basically any elemental mods. And the last slot should definitely be melee damage resistance, since you will be in the face of your enemies all the time. Normally I would run Concussive Dampener, which reduces AoE damage, but this is a different kind of build. For your legs, I would go for Better Already and Recuperation, since both give you healing, so this pairs perfectly with Echo of Leeching. Simply loads of healing. You should have left one slot open, so just put in one Void Surge, cause why not? And for your class item, you should use Outreach to get your charged melee back faster, then Powerful Attraction to collect nearby orbs and proc healing, and then the only reason why I'm running Distribution is because single Outreach will give you 12% of melee back. Double Outreach will bump it up to 17, so that's only 5% increase. So why not run Absolution, which gives you a 4% increase for every ability when you dodge near enemies. So that's pretty much it, but of course do not forget the artifact mods. There's a few good ones when running this build. Hold the Line. It gives you increased reload speed for Glaives, but most importantly, final blows heal you, so include this one 100%. Consider Volatile Marksman. Rapid Void Precision hits and Rapid Final Blows give your weapons volatile rounds, which works perfectly, because we're using Vexcalibur either way. This mod also has a boost, which says that Volatile Detonations give you class ability too. Since we're on a Hunter, that is simply perfect. Maligned Harvest. Rapidly applying Volatile causes your next instance of Void weapon damage to create a weakening burst, which again works perfectly with everything else we have going on. Also, remember when I said that I will come back to something about Triton Vice? So Triton Vice also makes enemies explode after you defeat them, and it does quite a bit of damage. So with everything going around, this just adds that cherry on top of everything. Your fourth artifact mod should be No Bell. Rapid Glaive melee final blows grant special ammo, and Glaives get more. Blocking damage also increases their melee damage to targets. This is literally a perk made for Vexcalibur, so don't miss out on this one. And last but not least, Void Flux. Defeating weakened targets with a Void weapon applies Volatile to nearby targets. This one closes out the whole Volatile weaken loop, and they all fit so well within this build. So what do you think? Can this off-meta build shine in front of all of the Arc Titans and Warlocks? Or is it gonna be just a meh, not worth it build for you? I honestly really recommend trying it. It is very unique, it stands strong in any activity when you get to know it. Let me know if you try it and how it feels. If you liked it, hit that like button, subscribe. I have loads of new content planned for the future. OG signing off, see you next time. Oh, and by the way, I noticed that a lot of people don't even realize that this website even exists. It is called D2 Armor Picker. Definitely check it out if you have not used it before. You can make a build so easily. You can copy this build to Destiny Item Manager, put the mods on, and you won't have to think which armor piece you should use for a certain build. Definitely check it out.